Hi, everyone. Good to be here. Good to see your faces. So as we come on, I don't know, we can look around and regard our companions. We can, but also mainly we can just, I think, just sort of be happy to be here in the temple. So yeah, here we are. Feeling in here, it's feeling the spring. You know, the birds are zooming about. The hawks have built their nests and they're busy like intimidating anyone who comes near, you know, something they have a special sort of skill for. You know. The owls are, I don't know what the owls do. Owls don't build nests, they just sort of camp somewhere. So, but I like them a lot because they have the Sutra of the Night. The woo, 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 woo. The old Koan goes, speech is a matter of subject and object. Even not talking is a matter of subject and object. How do we get beyond subject and object? The great old Chinese master said, I'm always thinking of the lakes in March. Partridges are singing among the fragrant blossoms. I found this wonderful, I ran across this one, and I can't find the poem that's the source of it. Wonderful poem of Paul Celan that says, spring, the trees fly up to their birds. And I thought, that's Koan life. And I've got not one, but like 5 Celan books, but I couldn't find the poem. So. Which is hard in translated things because someone may have translated it differently, but spring is usually easy to find. The trees fly up to their birds. And I think I'll start out by reading some poems. And I thought, why do we read poems? We read poems to free ourselves, just the way we do Zazen. And so I always like the examples of freedom. Going to visit the Taoist master on Dai Tian Mountain, but not finding him. So not finding him is the important bit, I think. I'm pretty sure this is, who is this? I'm pretty sure this is Li Bai, but it might not be. A dog barks through the sound of water. Peach blossoms hang heavy with dewdrops. In the deep forest I glimpse a passing deer. The rushing brook muffles the noonday bells. Wild bamboos slice through green mist, streams in flight hang between emerald peaks. Nobody knows where the master has gone. Left to wonder, I rest among some pines. That's that great Taoist or Zen thing. Not getting what you want is just as good. And here's a truly wacky one. I've been looking at Tony Hoagland's last book was a book on poetic voice, and I don't know that I understand it that well, but or that I see things that way necessarily, but but anyway, in it, it's also a kind of anthology because there's wonderful odd poems in it that he's using to illustrate something. And this is someone called Eleanor Lerman, who wrote some poems really young and became semi-famous and got wildly attacked in that way of envy that artists do. And she stopped writing, which can happen. But anyway, then she began writing again. 4 drinks after 9 o'clock at the sports bar down by the river that is commanded by Newtonian forces, also they say. They also say that particles collide, but I've never seen that happen. And then, of course, there is the theory that giant lizards are patrolling outer space in spiny ships. There's someone who's having a good time with her language. The sort of person Tony Hoagland would like. And this is Transtromer, Secrets on the Way. Daylight struck the face of a man who slept. His dream was more vivid, but he did not wake. Darkness struck the face of a man who walked among the others in the sun's strong, impatient rays. He was suddenly dark like a downpour. I stood in a room that contained every moment, a butterfly museum, and the sun still as strong as before. Its impatient brushes were painting the world. So the Zen in poems like that is really about, I suppose, about the loopiness of life, that it doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, I said this years ago. I was at some kind of conference and people were talking about creativity and how you make a leap, and and I put that in my book, Rhino book, about koans. I said, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. And I thought, that's horseshit. You go 1, 2, 3, 4 rhinoceros, and or elephant or whatever it is, The trees fly out to their birds. And okay. You ask me why I stay up here alone on the green mountain. I smile but give no other answer. And yet my heart's at leisure. The peach blossom floats away on the stream, carried far by water. Here, apart from the human world, I have heaven and earth together. The beauty of solitude, really. There's this guy I know pretty well who's of my generation, but instead of going to Zen, he went into the Tibetan Vajrayana world. And he said, we're all magicians. Zen people are too, they just don't always know it, We're not like trying to calm the mind like Vipassana people or something like that, because there's no end to that, And I thought, he's kind of right in a way. The birds fly up to meet the trees, He told me one of his teachers was lived in a cave in the Himalayas. This was before the Chinese invaded for a long time, and they'd send someone up every spring to see if he was still alive after the bitter cold. And he was happily there, meditating and chanting and talking to his ancestors. And then he came. I said, well, why did he come out? Well, his teacher told him he had to come out and run a temple. So he became this sort of vast figure, traveling all over the world. But I thought, yeah, it's completely okay. As it is, your life is beautiful, as it is. And I have heaven here, apart from the human world, I have heaven and earth together. Now I want to read you a great American poem. Hoping I can find it. And this is Elizabeth Bishop. Some of you may have known her, I don't know, but a tremendous poet. A cold spring for Jane Dewey, Maryland. And she starts out quoting Hopkins, "Nothing is as so beautiful as spring." Sudong Po's sentiment too, A cold spring, the violet was floored on the lawn. For 2 weeks or more, the trees hesitated. The little leaves waited, carefully indicating their characteristics. Finally, a grave green dust settled over your big and aimless hills. One day, in a chill white blast of sunshine, on the side of one of the hills, on the side of one, a calf was born. The mother stopped lowing and took a long time eating the afterbirth, a wretched flag, but the calf got up promptly and seemed inclined to feel gay. The next day was much warmer. Greenish-white dogwood infiltrated the wood, each petal burned apparently by a cigarette butt, and the blurred red bud stood beside it, motionless but almost more like movement than any placeable colour. 4 deer practiced leaping over your fences. The infant oak leaves swung through the sober oak. Song sparrows were wound up for the summer, and in the maple, the complimentary cardinal cracked a whip, and the sleeper awoke, stretching miles of green limbs from the south. It's good, isn't it? The sleeper awoke, stretching miles of green limbs. In his cap, the lilacs whitened. Then one day they fell like snow. Now in the evening a new moon comes. The hills grow softer. Tufts of long grass show where each cowflop lies. The bullfrogs are sounding slack strings plucked by heavy thumbs. Beneath the light against your white front door, the smallest moths like Chinese fans flatten themselves, silver and silver gilt, over pale yellow, orange or grey. Now from the thick grass, the fireflies begin to rise. Up, then down, then up again, lit on the ascending flight, drifting simultaneously to the same height, exactly like the bubbles in champagne. Later on, they rise much higher, and your shadowy pastures will be able to offer these particular glowing tributes every evening now throughout the summer. So I think a good spring poem always has that thing of, you can feel we're in something bigger than ourselves. There's something greater taking us over. Celan does that with his wildness, and also that's how he saw things. But also the fireflies do that here for us. They know what they're doing. And so I was thinking about spring and thinking about, I think incorrectly, I was thinking of Eurydice as a spring figure because she goes in the underworld and comes back like Persephone, but I think the Eurydice Orpheus poem, or became a poem called Sir Orfeo in Middle English, actually. But that legend, it's really more about loss than about the seasons. The Persephone, Demeter one is about the seasons. It's also about the way we can't let go of our children, things like that, And so, yeah. But Eurydice she gets bitten by a snake, and her husband is Orpheus, the greatest singer, the magical singer, and trees would follow him when he sang or played an instrument. And he talked the gods into letting his wife come back from it. He went down into the underworld himself with incredible, insane courage and sang for the gods, who are not that easy. The underworld gods are not that easy to please, you've probably noticed. If you've loved anyone who's died, they're not easy to placate, those people. And also it's often wrong to placate them. But anyway, the Orpheus succeeded. He pulled it off. And they said, well, you just have to walk all the way back up the winding road to the daylight, up the winding path, the silent winding path, and do not turn around until you are both out of the underworld. But as he walked, he had all these thoughts of like, they're tricking me. She's not there. I don't know what I'm doing, because he couldn't hear anything, and her feet were so silent. Rilke has a famous poem about this. You couldn't hear her footsteps, And so as soon as he kind of resisted the impulse, and he waited until he'd gotten out and he saw the daylight and the trees, and he turned around, but she had not yet gotten out. And she turned and went back down into hell again. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about spring. And she keeps getting mixed up in the mythologies with Persephone, who was the goddess of the seasons. So it's not like there's not some entanglement of the myths going on, So, but and I was thinking about one of the things spring means is not to look back. It's not time to look back, spring. It's a time for the flowers and the green leaves bursting, and the birds, animals being born, and the birds mating, and all that stuff, And not looking back is a marvelous, deep thing to think about, because we spend so much time with would have, could have, should have in life, It's particularly so when you get bad emperors. Chinese noticed this too. Bad emperors, they're everywhere. And don't look back. See the spring, have the spring, love the spring. Because if you're looking back, you're not having the spring you have. So there is that. And the dreams you need, and the dreams you have that are yours and belong to this time. Pretty soon I'll have to stop talking, and we can do some actual meditation. Here's a spring poem that I really like. It's a Busan poem, and it's really simple and sort of gormless in a way, but seas in spring, all day long, swelling, falling, swelling, falling. That's it. Thank you, Busan. And he has one more similar one. Grass, mist rising, not a voice over the water. The day has ended. He was a famous painter, Busan, much more known for his painting than his poems, which he became known for later. But, you can feel that. The day has ended. A complete moment. When you go to bed, the day has ended. Don't look back. So, the day has ended. So I'm thinking we ought to meditate a bit, because I notice that when we meditate more, we're happier. This is not rocket science, although this knowledge has not penetrated SpaceX as far as I know. But but when we meditate more, we're more at peace, and the world slips. We slip through the currents and the knots in things. So, what's
I think John maybe is asking me to say something, but I'm not sure.
oh, somehow. Anyway, so it's a joke, a Zoom joke, because I unmuted you, but then somehow I got muted. So it's sort of like excellent work, Zoom, or John. Yeah.
Playing a joke on us.
Yeah.
Well, I guess thinking about the great forces of spring, this force larger than any of even my unhappiness or my fear or my projections into the future of what terrible things might be waiting for me. That the surprise of um, even just the smallest thing, like which flowers have decided to come up in the garden, which iris or which daffodil, or where I planted these special bulbs that were incredibly expensive, and then they don't come up where I plant them, but they come up someplace else in the garden where I had no intention. I know I did not plant them there. The joy of that, also the way spring, it's not it's outside of linear time, which unhappiness is very much in the domain of linear time, of past, present, and future, and going off in this line. But spring has this elliptical motion of return, and time, linear time, being undermined, I guess, by that, the return that's not to do with me making something happen, and the great surprise and relief of that. I was thinking this morning about the birds are starting to nest now. They're starting to 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 stake out their domains. And about 30 years ago, I had a friend who was traveling in Mexico and was going to a city called Guanajuato, which was famous for its hand-carved masks. And at the time, I was just in love with everything handmade Mexican. So he brought me back a mask from Guanajuato that was a face of a tiger, and the tiger's jaw was wide open, and inside the jaw was a human face looking out of the tiger's mouth. And I liked it for a long time, and then I started not liking it, so I decided to hang it up outside in a out of the way place. And then I liked it even less, and I was going to hang it even further away. So I went to go move it, and as I pulled it off the wall, there was an entire bird's nest inside the mask. And some bird had found it to be the perfect location for its nesting site, which I thought was like tremendously amusing and brilliant choice for the bird. And so this year I've been wanting to go check and see if they've returned to the tiger with the human face with the bird's nest inside. So the surprise of spring.
Tess, do you have anything to say?
Not much, but just feeling very enchanted and kind of quiet with all the silence and poetry. But what Allison just said made me think of just that, I guess, part of what you're saying, that magic, spontaneous quality that's, in a sense, unreflective, because it just appears. And yesterday we went to a favorite little cafe to get breakfast sandwich and little drink and thing, and we were sitting having somewhat serious conversation, and all of a sudden I just see my partner's face totally change and start going like this. And I thought, what is going on? And I turn around and there's a little girl, probably about 12 or 14 months or something, just giving her eyes and wanting engagement. And my partner's usually, on the more stoic end of things. And so she just starts waving and smiling and waving. And this went on for, good 5 minutes. And her parents said, because she said, "Oh, she can clap," and she said she's been working on it, and the little girl, you could just tell she'd been working on it. And by the time the scene sort of changed, because the little girl was definitely not giving it up easily. She was so happy to have, friends a few minutes away. The whole atmosphere of the conversation, like everything had changed, and it just felt in everything you're saying today, that's the sort of partridges and March and spring that it just sort of came out, and the world was good. So I think that's it.
Thank you. John Joseph.
Well, listening to these stories of spring and these partridges saying, and I'm just realizing how far kind of that feeling is away from my family right now. With we've got two old timers, a mother-in-law and a father-in-law, who are sort of spiraling down in hospice, and father-in-law just went back into the hospital the second time with 4 broken ribs and blood in his thorax and thoracic cavity, failing kidney. And on top of that, he's just impossible to deal with, streperous and argumentative and not appreciative. And it's not something that, like a fluffy pillow or a faster response from the nurse or a little bit marginally better food or warmer tea or something is gonna solve. And so it kind of takes a rhinoceros to deal with that, where in a way you just have to just tell him the joy of the world, be with you. There's and not kind of look back, because you're not going to solve it, and he's not going to solve it, and it's going to resolve at some point. But just the joy of the world to you. I guess I would wish him that.
That's a thing, really, isn't it? That people are allowed to be unhappy. So, and we can't interfere with that. It's like that's their destiny, So it's a nice thing to realize. Oh, fortunately, you're really unhappy right now, and just like
the great thing is that when you give him that greeting, in a way, it's better for him and it's better for you. It's just better for the universe in a way.
Well, Buddha nature is what is. It's in what is. So yeah. Well, it's not our job to change them or make it better for them. We show up for them, and it's incredibly generous of you to just show up for him and have him be obnoxious. And it's like, fortunately, you're obnoxious today. That's not unexpected. Yeah, thanks, John. Michelle, do you have anything to say?
I wanted to say, first of all, when I came onto the program today, for some reason, I was really struck by all the yellow and gold and green and yellow green in so many of the boxes. And there's as though it's like a field of flowers sitting inside of me, in front of me on Zoom. And I've been really enjoying that. being, yeah. I thought I might share something, and then after John spoke there, I too have old people in my life. And so some piece of me wants to respond to that and also just share something interesting. I've told many stories about my dad and his increasing sort of loosening grip on whatever somebody might call sort of a shared reality. And for years and years and years, he's fought it so hard. And so it was this kind of showing up while he would keep going, no, I've got total control over this. I can do this, And a few weeks ago, he shifted and he doesn't do that. And he's like, yeah, it's kind of hard for me. Yeah, that's how it is for me. I don't know. And he's so much lighter and it's so much fun. And even that might change, but it's that showing up. So I don't know. That's a piece of my life and it popped up. I too don't always have a grip on reality.
Well, that's the trees flying up to meet the birds. So, yeah. Jesse, do you have anything you want to say?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think, I don't know. I'm feeling that the universe is kinder than I might have given it credit for, something. There's always that, life is hard, life is hard, life is hard, life is hard. And then I sit and I go, wait a minute. There's just something else going on here outside the confines of where I've been living. And I think that's kind of it. And it's nice I can trust that when I come here, that seems to just always be here. And it's nice to know. I suppose that's taking refuge. So nice to know it. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela Rockall, do you have anything you want to say from the far side of the world?
Well, autumn here, of course. And I guess just we're in the roaring 40s, so in theory it should be incredibly windy here at the moment, but in fact it's just this marvelous stillness, and it's got a different quality in the night and in the day. But in the night, what I feel is the way it extends in all directions, that stillness, and I feel it going out to meet the edges of turbulence elsewhere. But it kind of reminds me of when I was a child. I haven't read it since I was a child. One of C.S. Lewis's kind of speculative fiction novels, maybe Out of the Silent Planet. And there'd be lots of things in it that I'm pretty sure I'd object to now. But one of the things was this image of traveling in a spaceship outside the atmosphere. So it was interplanetary space. But the realization that the space was alive, that it wasn't void, and that it was full of life. And that's the feeling I have sitting tonight in the quiet, or in the live stillness of the meditation. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. That's one of the meditation things anyway, isn't it? That we're embraced by the universe. Okay. Well, thank you. It's very nice to be here. The entire meaning of our life is folded in this morning of Zazen. Something I learned when I was in a temple is that, I don't know, if you just stop and go into the Zazen, everything, it works itself out. It's beyond your working out, which we kind of noticed probably. So we can't work it out ourselves. And approving or disapproving doesn't really count. But, you know, and there are things we can do to make things better. But there's a perfection in just being you in the vastness of the universe. And the vastness of the universe supports you. It really does.